Habits shape your life. Every decision you make, every action you take, every result you experience is a reflection of the habits you've built over time. The things you do consistently without even thinking are what determine your future. And while good habits lead to success, bad habits will destroy it. They drain your energy. They steal your time. They pull you in the wrong direction, making it harder and harder to break free. And the longer they stay, the stronger they get. The problem is, most people don't realize how much their bad habits control them. They underestimate their power. They assume that if things ever get bad enough, they'll just stop. But bad habits do not simply go away. They do not disappear with willpower alone. They are wired into your mind, reinforced by repetition, strengthened by years of practice. And if you do not take control, they will control you. Bad habits are sneaky. They do not always seem destructive at first. They start as small choices, harmless actions, little indulgences that feel good in the moment. But over time, they build momentum. They become part of your identity. They create patterns that are hard to break. And before you know it, they have shaped your life into something you never intended. The truth is, breaking bad habits is not just about stopping something. It is about replacing it. It is about rewiring your mind, shifting your environment, and setting yourself up for success. Because you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. If your habits are strong, success becomes automatic. But if your habits are weak, they will break you before you even realize what's happening. So how do you break free? How do you stop the cycle? How do you take control before your habits take control of you? There are 5 key ways to break bad habits before they break you. 5 strategies that will not only help you stop destructive behaviors, but also replace them with new, powerful habits that will drive you toward success. These are not quick fixes. They are not temporary solutions. They are long-term strategies designed to rewire your mind, reshape your behavior, and rebuild your future. Because once you understand how habits work, you will never feel trapped again. So, the first way to break bad habits is to identify the root cause. Most people try to stop a habit by focusing on the behavior itself. But the behavior is just the surface. It is just the symptom. If you do not go deeper, if you do not understand what is driving the habit, you will always struggle to break it. Because habits do not exist in isolation. They are connected to emotions, triggers, routines, and deeply ingrained patterns. Think about the habits you struggle with the most. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's unhealthy eating. Maybe it's negative self-talk or wasting time or avoiding responsibilities. Whatever it is, ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is triggering this habit? What is the real reason I keep repeating this behavior? Most bad habits are not random. They are responses to something deeper. Stress, boredom, fear, insecurity. These emotions drive behavior more than anything else. You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. You procrastinate because you are avoiding discomfort. This is why simply trying to stop a habit rarely works. You might resist for a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But unless you remove the underlying cause, the habit will return. Willpower alone is not enough. You have to replace the need the habit is fulfilling. Start by paying attention to when the habit happens. What is happening right before? What are you feeling? Where are you? Who are you with? Are you tired, stressed, bored? Once you recognize the pattern, you can start changing it. Because if you remove the trigger, you remove the urge, but awareness is just the first step. You must also find a better replacement. Every habit exists because it serves a purpose, even bad ones. They provide comfort, escape, relief. And if you try to eliminate a habit without replacing it, your mind will resist. You cannot simply remove something. You must redirect it. If stress is triggering your bad habit, what can you do instead? If boredom is the cause, how can you fill that time in a productive way? If insecurity is driving your behavior, how can you build confidence in a way that does not involve self-sabotage? The goal is to give your mind a better option, one that fulfills the same need without the negative consequences. For example, if you reach for junk food when you're stressed, swap it for movement. Go for a walk, stretch, do something physical. If you procrastinate because you feel overwhelmed, break the task into small steps and set a timer for just 5 minutes. If you waste time on distractions because you feel unmotivated, create an environment that makes it easier to focus. Set a deadline, remove temptations, add accountability. It is not enough to just say, I need to stop doing this. You must create a new pathway. You must give yourself an alternative response, one that is intentional, one that is aligned with your goals, one that strengthens you instead of weakening you. And here's the truth most people ignore. Breaking a habit is not about perfection. It's about consistency. You will slip up. You will fall into old patterns. But the goal is not to never make a mistake. The goal is to catch yourself faster and get back on track immediately. Most people fail because they think one mistake means they have failed completely. But success is not about being perfect. It is about staying committed even when you slip. It is about seeing every mistake as a lesson, not a failure. So when you mess up, ask yourself, what triggered that habit? What can I do differently next time? What is a better way to respond? Because every time you catch yourself, you get stronger. Every time you choose the better option, you reinforce a new habit. Every time you correct the pattern, you move closer to breaking free. The first step to breaking any bad habit is understanding why it exists in the first place. Identify the root cause. Recognize the trigger. Replace the habit with something that serves you instead of sabotaging you. And when you do this consistently, the habit loses its power. You take control. You shift the pattern. You break free. Next. The second way to break bad habits is to change your environment. Your habits do not exist in isolation. They are influenced by your surroundings, your physical space, the people you interact with, the routines you follow, the things you expose yourself to. All of these shape your behavior. And if you do not change your environment, you will always struggle to change your habits. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings control them. They assume that habits are purely a matter of willpower, that if they just try harder, they can stop destructive behaviors. But willpower is weak compared to the power of cues in your environment. If you are surrounded by triggers that reinforce your bad habit, you will keep falling into the same cycle, no matter how badly you want to stop. Think about the habits you want to break. What is in your environment that keeps pulling you back into them? If you want to stop procrastinating, but your workspace is full of distractions, you are setting yourself up to fail. If you want to stop wasting time, but you're not planning 1 minute of your day, you are reinforcing the very habit you are trying to break. Your environment is either working for you or against you. And the key to breaking bad habits is to design an environment that makes the habit harder to do. Because if something is inconvenient, you are less likely to do it. If a bad habit requires extra effort, your brain will naturally resist it. Start by identifying the cues that trigger your habit. Where does the habit usually happen? What objects, places, or people are associated with it? What patterns keep repeating? Once you recognize these cues, make strategic changes. Rearrange your space. Remove the temptations. Create friction between yourself and the habit. Here's how simple it is. If you want to cut down on unhealthy eating, do not keep junk food in your house. If you want to stop watching too much TV, unplug it after every use so that turning it back on requires extra effort. Small environmental shifts can make a massive difference. It's that simple. That doesn't mean it's an easy thing to do, but it is simple. But eliminating cues is only half the battle. You must also add new cues that reinforce the habits you want to build. If you want to read more, put a book in the place where you normally waste time. If you want to work out consistently, set out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to wake up earlier, put your alarm across the room so you are forced to get out of bed. Make good habits easy and bad habits difficult. Because behavior follows the path of least resistance. Your mind will always choose what is easiest. And if the easiest option is your bad habit, you will keep falling into it. But if the easiest option is the habit you want to build, you will start changing your behavior without even thinking about it. Now, here's something most people overlook: the influence of other people. Your environment is not just about physical objects. It is also about the people you surround yourself with. And whether you realize it or not, your habits are shaped by the habits of those around you. If you spend time with people who make excuses, you will start making excuses. If you are surrounded by people who have no discipline, your discipline will suffer. If the people in your life reinforce bad habits, you'll find it almost impossible to break free from them, because we mirror the behaviors of those around us, even when we do not realize it. This is why changing your environment often means changing who you allow into your life. If you are serious about breaking bad habits, you must protect yourself from people who pull you in the wrong direction. That does not mean cutting everyone off, but it does mean being intentional about who you spend the most time with. Surround yourself with people who push you forward, people who hold you to a higher standard, people who live the kind of life you want to create. Because when you are around people who embody the habits you want, their behavior will start influencing yours in a positive way. And this is key. You do not need to find perfect people. You just need to put yourself in environments where better habits are the norm. Join a group that aligns with your goals. Spend time in places that reinforce the identity you want to build. Put yourself in situations where the behavior you desire is normal, because when something feels normal, it becomes effortless. Your habits are a reflection of your environment. And if you want to break bad habits before they break you, you must take control of that environment. Remove the triggers. Make the bad habit inconvenient. Make the good habit the easiest option. Surround yourself with people who elevate you instead of holding you back. Because when your environment is aligned with your vision, breaking bad habits is no longer a struggle. It becomes automatic. Okay, now the third way to break bad habits is to reprogram your identity. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with bad habits, you will continue to struggle. If you believe you are someone who lacks discipline, you will keep proving yourself right. Because every action you take is a reflection of the identity you hold in your mind. And as long as your identity is aligned with your bad habits, you will always revert back to them. Most people try to change their habits by focusing on behavior alone. They set goals. They try to force themselves to act differently. They push through with willpower. But if deep down, they still see themselves as the same person, someone who is lazy, someone who is inconsistent, someone who always falls back into old patterns, then no amount of effort will create lasting change. They still see themselves as the same person, someone who's lazy, someone who's inconsistent, someone who always falls back into old patterns. Then no amount of effort will create lasting change. Your habits are not just what you do. They are an expression of who you believe you are. And until you shift your identity, you will always struggle to break free from bad habits, because your subconscious mind will fight to keep you in alignment with the person you think you are. Think about the difference between these two statements. I'm trying to quit smoking versus I'm not a smoker. The first statement suggests struggle. It suggests effort. It suggests that the person still sees themselves as someone who smokes, but is trying to resist. The second statement is a declaration of identity. It removes internal conflict. It aligns the person's self-image with the new habit they want to build. And this is the key. Your actions will always follow your identity. If you see yourself as someone who is undisciplined, you will continue making undisciplined choices. If you see yourself as someone who has no control, you will act accordingly. But if you start seeing yourself as someone who is strong, focused, and in control, you will start making decisions that match that identity. So how do you reprogram your identity? How do you shift the way you see yourself so that your actions naturally follow? One of the fastest ways is through small, consistent wins. Every time you take an action that aligns with your new identity, you reinforce it. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you build evidence. Every time you prove to yourself that you are capable, the belief gets stronger. Most people think identity change happens first, that they need to believe they are a certain type of person before they can act like that person. But the opposite is true. You do not wait to believe. You act your way into belief. You take small steps that reinforce the new identity. And over time, those small steps reshape the way you see yourself. If you want to become someone who exercises consistently, start with something small. Do 10 push-ups every morning. If you want to become someone who is productive, eliminate just one distraction from your environment. If you want to become someone who eats healthy, replace just one bad food choice per day with a better one. These small actions may seem insignificant, but they are powerful because they create evidence. And your brain believes what it has proof for. Every time you take an action that aligns with your new identity, you make it stronger. Every time you repeat it, you rewrite the script in your mind. And here's something even more powerful. Language reinforces identity. The way you talk about yourself shapes the way you see yourself. If you constantly say, I always procrastinate, I can never stick to anything, I have no self-control, you are reinforcing that identity. And your brain will work hard to make sure you stay consistent with what you believe. But if you start saying, I am the kind of person who follows through, I make disciplined choices, I do not let bad habits control me, you are training your mind to accept a new version of yourself. And once your mind accepts it, your actions will naturally follow. Most people let their past dictate their identity. They think that because they have struggled with bad habits for years, that is just who they are. But your past does not define you. Your decisions do. And at any moment, you can decide to step into a new identity. You can decide to stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles. You can decide to start seeing yourself as someone who takes control. The key to breaking bad habits is not just changing what you do. It is changing who you are. Shift your identity. Create small wins. Speak differently about yourself. And once you start seeing yourself as the kind of person who does not let bad habits run their life, those habits will lose their grip on you. Next, the fourth way to break bad habits is to interrupt the pattern. Every habit follows a loop, a trigger, an action, and a reward. If you do not disrupt the loop, the habit will continue running on autopilot. But if you can break the sequence, even for a moment, you create an opening to change. Most bad habits feel automatic. You barely notice them happening until they are already in motion. You eat something unhealthy before realizing it. You start daydreaming, procrastinating, avoiding the task you should be doing. And by the time you recognize what's happening, you are already deep in the behavior. The reason this happens is that habits are wired into your brain as fast decisions. They bypass conscious thought. They follow a pattern that has been reinforced so many times that your mind does not even question it. And this is why most people struggle to stop. Because by the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. The habit is already in control. But here's the secret. If you can interrupt the pattern before it completes, you can take back control. If you can catch yourself in the moment before the action fully takes place, you give yourself the power to choose something different. One of the fastest ways to do this is through physical disruption. Change your position, move your body, do something unexpected, because the brain is wired to follow momentum. And when you physically break the flow of a habit, you create a moment of awareness, just enough to step in and change direction. If you keep thinking about watching TV, stand up and walk to another room. If you feel the urge to snack out of boredom, drink a glass of water first. If you catch yourself getting distracted, clap your hands loudly and say, stop. Literally shock your system out of autopilot. These small interruptions may seem insignificant, but they are powerful because they wake you up from unconscious behavior. And once you are aware, you can replace the habit with something better. Because breaking a habit is not just about stopping. It is about redirecting that energy. If you remove a habit without replacing it, your mind will search for something else to fill the gap. But if you intentionally introduce a new response, you take control of the pattern. For example, if your habit is procrastination, the moment you catch yourself hesitating, count down from 5 and take immediate action. Do not give yourself time to negotiate. If your habit is negative self-talk, the moment you recognize a negative thought, say something positive out loud. Shift the energy. If your habit is stress eating, replace the action. Go for a quick walk. Do 10 deep breaths. Physically step away from the situation. And here's the key. The faster you interrupt the habit, the weaker it becomes. The longer you allow it to run, the stronger it gets. Every time you catch it early, you retrain your brain. You build awareness. You take control. And over time, you reach a point where the habit loses its power entirely. But interruption alone is not enough. You must also remove temptations that reinforce the habit. Because if something is always within reach, your brain will default to it. If junk food is in the house, you will eat it. If your favorite show is a button away, you will waste time. If distractions are everywhere, you will keep procrastinating. Make bad habits inconvenient. If you tend to waste time watching TV, unplug it after every use so that turning it back on requires extra effort. If you want to cut down on junk food, don't buy it in the first place. Because when something is harder to do, you are less likely to do it. And here's something even more powerful. Use commitment devices to block bad habits in advance. A commitment device is a system that prevents you from making a bad decision in the first place. It removes willpower from the equation by setting up an automatic consequence for certain behaviors. And here's the truth. Bad habits hate friction. The more difficult you make them, the less power they have over you. And the easier you make good habits, the more naturally they will replace the old ones. So the next time you catch yourself falling into a bad habit, stop and ask, how can I interrupt this pattern? How can I disrupt this moment? How can I make the bad habit harder and the good habit easier? Because the more you interrupt the pattern, the weaker it gets. And once you weaken it enough, breaking free is inevitable. Next. The fifth way to break bad habits is to build accountability. Most people fail to change because they rely only on themselves. They set goals in private. They make silent promises. They tell themselves, this time will be different. But when no one else knows about their commitment, it is too easy to break. Bad habits thrive in secrecy. They survive in isolation. They grow in the dark where there is no pressure to change. But the moment you bring accountability into the equation, everything shifts. The moment you make a commitment public, you raise the stakes. You put yourself in a position where failing is not just a personal disappointment. It becomes something you must answer for. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that when you set a goal in your head, it's easy to make excuses? But when you tell someone else, suddenly it feels real. That's because accountability forces you to act in alignment with your words. It adds a layer of social pressure, and that pressure can be used to your advantage. One of the simplest ways to create accountability is to find a partner, someone who will check in on you, someone who will call you out if you slip, someone who will not accept your excuses. This is not just a friend who listens to you talk about your struggles. This is someone who holds you to your word, someone who will challenge you, someone who will not let you quit. If you are trying to break a bad habit, tell someone you trust. Be specific. Say, I am committed to stopping this habit, and I want you to hold me accountable. If I slip, I need you to call me out. If I make excuses, I need you to remind me why I started. The simple act of saying it out loud makes the commitment real. But accountability goes beyond just telling someone. It is about creating real consequences. Because when there is something at stake, your mind takes change seriously. This is where commitment contracts come into play. A commitment contract is a personal agreement with consequences for failure. It is a structured way to keep yourself accountable by attaching a cost to your bad habit. For example, if you are trying to stop wasting time on distractions, set a rule that if you procrastinate on an important task, you have to pay $50 to a cause you dislike. If you want to stop eating junk food, commit to doing 50 push-ups for every unhealthy snack you eat. If you are trying to wake up earlier, set an accountability rule that says if you hit snooze, you have to donate money to charity. The key is to create real discomfort for breaking the habit. Because when there is a consequence, your brain will think twice before acting. You will be less likely to give in to temptation when you know there is a price to pay. But accountability is not just about consequences. It is also about tracking your progress. Because what gets measured gets improved. And if you are not tracking your habits, you will not know if you are truly making progress. Start by keeping a habit tracker. Every day you successfully avoid a bad habit, mark it down. Build a streak. Keep track of your progress in a way that is visible. Because when you see a streak growing, you will not want to break it. And when you have proof that you are improving, it becomes easier to keep going. For example, if you are trying to quit smoking, keep a calendar where you mark every day you go without a cigarette. If you are trying to cut back on watching TV, track how much time you save each week. If you're working on being more disciplined with your time, write down your accomplishments every evening. The act of tracking does two things. First, it creates awareness, so you cannot ignore your behavior. Second, it creates momentum, because once you see progress, you want to keep it going. And the longer you go without slipping, the stronger your new habit becomes. But here's something even more powerful. Reward yourself for staying on track. Because if breaking a habit only feels like sacrifice, you will eventually give up. Your brain needs to associate change with benefits, not just discipline. Set up a reward system. If you avoid your bad habit for a week, treat yourself to something meaningful. If you stay consistent for a month, do something enjoyable that reinforces your progress. Give yourself positive reinforcement so that breaking the habit feels like an achievement, not just deprivation. And here's the final truth. Accountability must be long-term. Most people stay accountable for a few weeks, but once the initial motivation fades, they loosen the rules. They stop checking in. They let small excuses slide. And before they know it, they are right back where they started. If you are serious about breaking a bad habit before it breaks you, accountability must become a lifestyle. You must keep your commitments visible. You must stay connected to people who hold you to a higher standard. You must track your progress and reward yourself for consistency. And you must always have something at stake. Because when you have real accountability, quitting is no longer an option. And when quitting is no longer an option, success becomes inevitable. Breaking bad habits is not about willpower. It is not about temporary motivation. It is about strategy. Because habits are powerful. They shape your future whether you realize it or not. And if you do not take control of them, they will take control of you. But now you know how to break free. You identify the root cause. So you stop fighting the symptom and fix the real problem. You change your environment so you make bad habits harder and good habits easier. You reprogram your identity so your habits align with the person you want to become. You interrupt the pattern. So you disrupt the automatic loop and replace it with something better. And you build accountability. So you create external systems that keep you consistent no matter what. None of this is about being perfect. You will slip up. You will make mistakes. You will have moments where you fall into old patterns. But the difference now is that you know how to correct it. Every time you catch yourself, you get stronger. Every time you replace a bad habit with a better one, you move forward. And every time you take control, you prove to yourself that you are not a prisoner to your habits. You are the one in charge. At the end of the day, your habits create your life. So if you want to change your life, start here. Because once you master your habits, you master everything else.